Europe Social debate today here in Barcelona. Welcome everyone here in the room and also online participants who are joining us today. Bon dia a tots en totes. Benvinguts y benvingudes a l'Europa Social. That's all my Catalan for today, I'm afraid. But you have your headsets and you can listen to either Catalan or English today. My name is Mieke Schuurman. I'm a Director of Child Rights and Capacity Building at Eurochild in Brussels, and I'm your chair for today. So I hope you, I'm happy to introduce all, all the speakers and everyone who's going to address us today. This is the 4th edition of Europa Social. It's a joint initiative of DIPLOCAT and the Third Sector Platform of Catalonia to bring the EU closer to the Catalan third sector and scale up and connect local initiatives advancing social rights at the EU level. In this year's edition, Europa Social tackles a key element of the social rights agenda, the rights of the child. That's why this year's Europa Social has also been co-organized with PINCat, which is the childhood platform of Catalonia, bringing together Catalan third sector networks devoted to the rights of the child agenda. Today, we also would like to thank once more the Pere, Tarrés Foundation and Campus for hosting us in this learning institution and contributing to the events program. And finally, on this 2023 edition, Europa Social counts with the support of Eurochild, the organization I'm working for. Eurochild is the leading network of organizations and individuals working with and for children throughout Europe. We are striving for a society that respects the rights of children. We influence policies, build internal capacities, and facilitate mutual learning and exchange practice and research. As Europe's leading and largest network for civil society organizations, we have 200 member organizations across Europe in 41 European countries, including 18 national partner networks, which in itself represent 4,000 diverse organizations and experts across the European Union and the wider Europe. The main thematic areas that we focus on are tackling child poverty and inequality, reforming child protection systems, mainstreaming children's rights and public policies, children's rights in the digital environment, and early childhood care and development. And child participation is at the heart of everything that we do. We believe that civil society has an important role to play in implementing children's rights, including when advocating for the most vulnerable children and their right to access to free education, healthcare, housing, nutrition, early childhood education. And I'm therefore pleased that we are supporting today's debate and conference. This event will address the child rights agenda from two complementary perspectives that connect trends, stakeholders, and ambitions. The first one is that the EU, international networks, and national authorities leading, implementing, or influencing key policies and strategies to advance children's rights. And the second complementary perspective is that local stakeholders, the third sector organizations, local authorities, or research groups often bring about these global agendas to their most concrete meaning. Okay, so how is today's event going to look like? We will first start with welcoming remarks by institutional partners and Europa Social co-organizers to have a more complete framing of the event's goals. Then we will have 2 round tables. They will address the 2 complementary perspectives, which are the EU and global perspective, which is at 10:30, and the territorial perspective at 11:30. Thirdly, in between these roundtables, we'll get to know more about the Catalonia scenario through 2 elevator pitches, and one immediately after the welcome regards, where PINCat will report on children's rights in Catalonia, and another one where Pere Tarrés Campus will also present their matter. And at 1:30, we will have a final intervention by the Catalonia Third Sector Platform and Eurochild to close the event. Now some practical information. As already mentioned, you all have headsets, or you can have headsets if you would like to have interpretation in Catalan and English. regarding the participation, there is a question and answer session at the end of the second round table. So there you're able to ask your questions, go in debate with the speakers. And there's also a QR code on the wall. Here, oh, sorry. On the wall, there's a QR code that you can use with slido.com and a hashtag, so that you can also post your questions over there, and they will then be collected and addressed during the conference. We won't have breaks, but there is food and drinks outside of this room. You're welcome to go outside and pick some foods during the conference, but please try not to disrupt the conference too much and the speakers. And we also invite you all to stay for lunch, so that we also get to know each other a bit better during the lunch. Okay, so I would like now to kick off the conference official program with the welcome regards from the 4 co-organizers and institutional partners of the conference. They're sitting here with me on the podium already. So we will start with José Antonio Ruiz, who is coordinator of the Catalonia's Platform for Childhood and Adolescence, and abbreviated by PINCat. So José, the floor is yours.
Bon dia.
Good morning, guests, international guests. Thank you for being here in this children's rights event. I'm really pleased to see this hall in such a beautiful day. And I want to start showing our concern for wars that violate, that give suffering in different parts of the world in a direct way, such as Gaza. In Gaza, more than 4,000 children have died, and here we want to show our commitment and human help, and we have the duty to work on a future with peace among violence. We are inside European social debates, and we collaborate with Eurochild and Pere Tarrés. Today, they are our guests. For newcomers, PINCat has got 26 coalitions, and we help approximately 1 million children. Our main aim is to promote human children's rights, and therefore today we're here because, as you know, it will be the International Children's Rights Day. Today will approach us to the projection, European and international projection, to children's rights. We will see articulation among different organisms, and the recognition of society and we need this recognition to move forward. And therefore, today, we will hear the third sector perspectives, and we will try to build alliances with Italy, Denmark, Austria, Malta, the Netherlands. We give you a warm welcome. We will see our territory perspective, and we will show the updates that was elaborated by PINCat on 2021. This report shows the state of rights from our point of view. Today we show our update. However, the Generalitat of Catalonia and other entities, we still have a long way to have a society that guarantees children's rights. Later, Judith will show us the report, but I want to focus on some aspects. The tax of poverty is more than 24%, but there is also a 31%. It's an increase of 7 points among children. We've got more than 400,000 of children that are in poverty, and a lot of them are in a critical state. We have overcome a pandemic. There's the Ukraine war, and this makes it even harder. There's a very high inflation, and there is an increase in energy that also gives difficulties. We have to cheer the Catalan government because they want to fight children poverty. And we want to face this issue with all the complexity. And we will be very attentive to all the development of this strategy. Relating to the participation rights, it's true that we have some participation fields with children and adolescents who are 18% of the population, and we need their point of view. So we want to make more participation spaces to avoid them being invisible. Some families don't have enough resources, economical resources. We've got different guarantees, but this poverty gives some disequalities, and not all children can go to an educative leisure that has got a lot of values, and we need to make it possible, because this leisure is essential for children's development, and we need to ensure the resource of inclusion, of functional diversity, but we are far from the 4% of PIB. And we are talking even about the 6%, but we still have a long way to go. And we are concerned about the increase of obesity, children obesity. We are concerned due to violence nowadays among children and adolescents, and mental health and wellness in our country. Also suicide, which is the first cause of premature death among youth. Talking about protection rights, while we are here, today and the next days, a lot of immigrants come that are taken care by Direcció General, but there is even more people, and here in Catalonia, the ordinary system of protection is affected, and we need to take care of it so that it can give a response to all these necessities and situations. So, to finish, because we've got a lot of things to talk about, this report shows that there has been a downfall in children's rights, an increase of violence, the poverty and exclusion has become stuck. Also, they quit studies, and consequences due to a digital crack that is increasing. It's not universal. So we've got a lot of subjects to talk about, but we always say that it will be hard to bring a solution. It doesn't matter about the government, but we need politics that support childhood and face these policies. And we need measures that can be brought on different bases. We have signed an agreement, and we have signed a frame that we have to respect and construct different routes that are a long-term route. We have to focus on all these subjects, because if not, it's very difficult to solve all these things that we have been talking about since 2011. And these claims need to have an European dimension. And we have to see how European policies are facing this subject. We need the third sector to be more important to give a response to these necessities, collaborating with administration, local entities. And next year, due to European Parliament elections, we want to focus on the guarantee of children's rights. Children's rights have to be the center of all the candidates, the European Commissions, and our most important challenge is to consolidate and amplify the European Childhood Guarantee to help all these programs. And before finishing, I wish you a great journey. Thank you for coming today. It's very emotional, but I want to share a dream that I had tonight. I wish that soon we have a day like this where children can also come and can design, co-create such journeys like this. We have to be with invisible population, and I want to finish talking about this. Thank you.
Thank you, José Antonio Ruiz. I can really support the dream that you have to co-organize a conference together with children, to also have, when you talk about children's rights, have also children in the room. Thank you for your warm welcoming words and setting the scene for today. We'd like now to give the floor to Gisela Riberas. She's Vice Dean for Academic Organization at the Pere Tarrés Campus of Social Education and Social Work. The floor is yours, Gisela.
Benvolguts i benvolgudes. Primer de tot vull donar les gràcies. welcome. First of all, I would like to thank the opportunity of being here and everybody who is making this possible. And I'm sure that nobody is going to be indifferent about the the children's rights that's going to be talked about, and the different conferences that are going to be held. And we thank all the participation of the experiences, territorial experiences. And we think that this debate, this discussion needs to generate a new boost, a new impulse to work on and keep an agenda that guarantees the rights of the children. The faculty is not just a place for education, for social and human work. It's just also a place of researchers and meetings, and so that everybody is listened, especially the most vulnerable people. And that's why we propose always looking into improvements, prevention, and give lessons in order to educate people in this sense. And I also want to take advantage of these few minutes in order to highlight these people who are working with the rights of the citizens, so that everybody is included, with the goal of changing the society so that it becomes more cohesive and more fair. First of all, I would like to highlight the commitment with Pere, Tarrés, and Ramon Llull with the process of Europa Social, Social Europe. This is the 4th edition, and we are working very strongly, and I would like to highlight that you are working really hard on this, and it is important, this value that you have brought to us, because you are putting together the innovation capacity in the 3rd sector, socially, in Catalonia and Europe, and it connects different territories. So I would like to congratulate you for this work that you've been doing. And also, it's important to highlight that there has been a lot of work done regarding education, leisure, and all this process of moving forward with children. And I would like to highlight these research initiatives regarding children's rights in order to move forward. From the faculty Pere, Tarrés, we propose keep working on this and you have already reached very far. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Gisela.
Muchas gracias, Gisela.
And also for hosting us here today in the faculty. I would like to continue with asking Laura Forrester, Secretary General of DIPLOCAT, to have her welcoming remarks. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mieke. Bedankt.
Thank you, everybody. Good morning, the authorities, the listeners, the speakers, everybody who has come from different places. It is a pleasure for DIPLOCAT and for me personally as well, why not say it, to participate in the inauguration of this session that we are organizing for the 4th consecutive year. As it has been said, we were already speaking about that. We were speaking here about the 3rd sector, and we have been commenting on the fact that we have been organizing this for 4 consecutive years, and this year we are doing it through the Children's and Adolescents Platform in Catalonia with the collaboration of the Eurochild, the European Network, and the Foundation Pere, Tarrés. And we thank them to welcome us here as well and give us this opportunity to talk about children's rights from a European perspective. I know I repeat myself, but I didn't want to forget anybody. And I also wanted to take advantage of this introduction to thanking all the predisposition of all the entities that have participated and have made it possible today we gather here today in this session, the entities, the working teams, everybody who is behind this work. It seems that when we meet here, everything is very simple, but there's a lot of work behind the scenes. So thank you so much for that. And also thank you, Mike, who is in charge of this session, and also all the expertise who are participating in all the roundtables and that are going to share with us all their experiences. Thank you to the public, the audience, and everybody who's following us on YouTube live. And thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody, and all the countries who are participating. And I start again with what I was saying at the beginning. It is very exciting for us to organize this type of sessions, which started in 2020. And this was proposed to us then, right, from DIPLOCAT. And then year after year, we've been promoting a different debate. During these years, we've been talked about the minimal income, the social living situation, and what we try is to compare everything and project the Catalan model and analyze it and open a vision and listen what's going on, what's happening in different places, different countries, and get to know different models. So these debates help us bring here in Catalonia social issues that are concerning to us as citizens, and put people in the front scenario. And then in next November 20th, we want to talk about the little ones. This day reminds us that all infants have the right to health, education, protection, no matter where they live or what origins they have. That's what it's said in the 1989 Constitution of Children's Rights, which today is the most ratified contract that has been for the children. And today we want to make it a day where we can pay attention to the children that are most vulnerable and work on their development and their day-to-day life. Jose Antonio was talking about some information in the report that will be talked about later, but it's almost 25% of children in Europe are at risk of poverty and social exclusion. And here in Catalonia, this number is almost 32%. And today, we have to raise our voice to claim for the fact that these kids need to have social and legal guarantees so that their rights are protected. And here at home, looking at the elections of June of 2024, and also the revision of the European Plan for Social Rights in 2025 by the European Commission, we want to take advantage to thank the community and the experts that are working with children who know what are the problems with them, and with the objective of giving recommendations so that the children's rights can be respected. And here we will focus on the fact that which is the situation of the children in Catalonia. We will talk about the social politics, and we will exchange experiences from different countries, no, that Gisela has already mentioned. And surely you have heard me say it many times, but for the people who have not, we want to promote this type of debate and this international experiences. And DIPLOCAT has a broad experience, a vast experience organizing this type of sessions and visits that we foster, and not only here but also abroad. And following our theme of the consortium, international dialogue, what we want to do is to promote this international dialogue and create dialogue bridges from Catalonia to the rest of the world. And we would like for these bridges to be durable in time, a long-term project, and they would let ideas, projects, and people flow. And we want to promote debates like this one, and that's why DIPLOCAT will continue to accompany all the entities of the civil society and also the entities from the consortium, 38 of them, starting with the Generalitat de Catalunya or the third sector platform, also entities who represent the business world, university, sports. But when we want to have this international presence, we will accompany the entities to contribute to the global debates and global challenges. Also, not only to promote the debate and collaboration among the entities, but also to exchange good practices, and also to know our reality and the reality abroad. And to conclude, I would like to thank everybody for the work that you're doing and from all the entities that you represent, and I hope that everybody enjoys this session. Thank you.
Laura Forrester, for your warm welcoming words, and also for being one of the co-hosts of this very important event for children's rights, leading up to, as already several of you mentioned, World Children's Rights Day, which is happening on Monday. The last welcoming words we are going to listen to are from Nuria Vols. She is Secretary of Childhood, Adolescence and Youth at the Department of Social Rights of the Government of Catalonia. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Moltes gràcies. Bon dia.
Thank you and good morning. And I feel like at home with all of you. I know all of you, but today I'm on another role. Anyway, thank you to DIPLOCAT, to this table, PINCat, for organizing this day. Because to have also an international point of view and see all the challenges are all we need to guarantee children and adolescent rights. But first, I have to congratulate you because on 1999, we proclaimed a Children's Rights Day, which is very important because we put on the agenda the important things, but we still have a lot of work to do. In this sense, the international point of view, expertise, good practice sharing will also help us. I also want to thank the entities such as PINCat, because without these entities, these social agents, our children and adolescents would have worse conditions. So it's good to recognize all your work. I also want to mention, as José Antonio said, I want to condemn all children violence, sexual, other types, and also at an international level, because there are a lot of conflicts in the world, as Gaza, Ukraine, Congo, South Africa, which make children and adolescents to be innocent victims. And as a society, we have to be responsible, to accept responsibilities. Talking about children, as José Antonio said, we will present the Pacta per la Infancia, which was approved and signed in 2000. 2013, it's still working, and it has 25 challenges that now are very important, the most important. A lot of you have participated, but in 2013, we didn't do, but we did this year. So, to prioritize these challenges, a lot of children, adolescents have participated. So protected childs and children that enjoy leisure, we have to thank you them, to make them important, and we want to ask them which are the rights that we have to prioritize. You will become surprised. So we think we have overcome this, but it's not true. So I invite you to come to Carrer Calabria on Monday to this presentation. So as a government, we are committed with protection, very committed. We are working firmly on strategies and resources against social abuse, sexual aggressions. And this is an international model adapted to Catalonia. And we are starting to develop them. There are 13 Barnahus houses that are working fully. And here are all the victims of sexual abuse. And we try to take care of them with the best conditions, collaborating with social entities, but we want to improve the conditions. But there is also another subject regarding migrant protection, children migrant protection. As you know, Catalonia has got the will to welcome children and youngsters that come to our country due to their situation, and they want to search the opportunities, but we want to see this as an opportunity so that children and youngsters have got guaranteed rights and can be the main characters of their lives. But we need all of you to improve these strategies. And also, I want to point out mental health. So maybe you have seen that there has been a collaboration to take care of children and youngsters between 14 and 29 who suffer from depression, anorexia, suicide. So we are totally over-collapsed. So this campaign is for children, for teens that use social networks, and we are totally over-collapsed. So it's very necessary to fight with them, and this is something that concerns us. So another important subject is children and adolescent poverty. So there are nearly 32% of children and youngsters that are poor, and we cannot tolerate this. So this is a very important challenge that concerns us. So as you know, that government in October approved an agreement against children and youngsters poverty. So we have to present it on March, and we will elaborate this strategy with 3 organisms: a committee where different sectors of government participate, so it's a very wide commitment, a transversal commitment, and all the government is committed. And we are collaborating with 7 institutions of civil society. So there's a council with PINCat, Fedaya, UNICEF, Save the Children, Creu Roja, Caritas, and other entities that will be observers, like Síndic de Greuges. There will be a technical committee, and we will be from the Secretariat and Save the Children. The main aims will be AIDS, because we're changing the citizen guarantee. We are collaborating with government, state, and we are collaborating on the minimum quantity of money. So we want all the families with the right to receive this money aid. So a lot of families have got these rights, but due to something, the money doesn't arrive. So there's also the education and leisure, and studying success. So we want to work on short, medium, and long term. We also want to promote healthy food, healthy diet, health issues, mental issues, living and energetic poverty, occupation for parents. So, as you see, it's a wide view that will be presented on March next year. Also, we will develop a pilot plan regarding education to see the causes that make poverty diminish or not. So we will coordinate this with the neighborhood plan that we are also developing, and the government has got a firm commitment, personal, collective, and we cannot make it without a great alliance. Administrations, civil society, enterprises, universities. So, because children deserve all of this. So, we all know that it's not the same being a poor child or a poor adult, and we have to take this issue seriously. I also wanted to say that we have to think that supporting children is an inversion. So we have to believe in this. It's really an inversion, and in this sense, we want that the European Union work so that children poverty doesn't contribute to European poverty, nothing else. So thank you for your work. Without you, we cannot guarantee the rights, our commitment in favor of a good life for children and adolescents. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Nuria Vals, for your warm welcoming words and also making the connection with the work of the government and the work that we're doing here as civil society and the third sector organizations. We're now quickly moving forward because we're going to listen to Judith Calabria. She's the project coordinator at PINCat, and she will present the 2023 report on the state of children's rights in Catalonia. Please. So we'll ask Judith to come to the stage here and present a report that we're all very much looking forward to listen to. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Hello. Good morning. Can you hear me well? Yes? Okay. Good morning, everybody, authorities, speakers, entities, friends. Today is a pleasure being here. We have prepared a presentation to illustrate the report. Today is a very important day for PINCat, the platform for children in Catalonia, because we are presenting our report. And I would like to thank all the entities from PINCat and all the people who have collaborated and made it possible. As we have already said, it's an update of the report that we presented on 2021, and it is focused on the idea that every year it should be updated and see what the situation is as far as the children's rights, and see if the politics that are being implemented are being successful or not. It's a picture of the present, and with a recollection of many data, a lot of information that all the entities here have been worked with. We have some copies that you can take when you leave. There are also QR codes around the room, and we also have the PDF here. So you can take it with you, and you don't have a lot of time and have a lot of information to provide. So we have selected the most important details, just like Jose said before, because it shows that the rights have gotten worse, are not improving since 2021. And first, I would like to say that in Catalonia, 20% of the population are children and adolescents. So almost the whole population of Barcelona, 15% of them are from abroad, and 2% have some sort of disability. We'll start with the information, rights and liberties, and the children usually access their first cell phone when they are 11 years old. And here it really, this is affected by the fact how rich or poor their families are. And this varies from 10 to 15 years old when the children start using a phone or a computer. And we see that there is a big difference here. There's a big digital gap in homes where the income is lower than 900 euros per month. As far as violence, we're very concerned because the information regarding violence towards infants have gotten worse regarding gender violence and racism, and since 2019 we can see this evolution up until now, and we see that also there has been more violence at school. And all the three fields, this has gone up. So we need to prevent, sensitize, and provide more resources to the to schools so that they can educate their children better socially and emotionally. The third block we have already spoke about, inclusion poverty. 1 out of 3 children in Catalonia is at risk of social exclusion and poverty. We're not going to repeat the information that we provided on the welcoming, but something very important is that 80% of the children who are living in houses that are vulnerable, they will be adults in a poverty situation, and this is very significant. And this report compares us to Europe, and that's why we're here. So the tax in Europe, in Catalonia, with respect to Europe, is much higher than in Europe, and we have gotten worse also. 1 point, and we are also seeing that every time is more difficult for families to finance the parenting and paying the living expenses, their housing. So we have gotten worse in the fact that many people cannot keep their house warm, they cannot give them the right nutrition because they don't have enough money, or they cannot pay unforeseeable expenses. So we need to give more, invest in families. So we need to get close to the 2.5% that is happening in Europe. So we need to fight against children poverty, and we need to work with the Catalan government regarding this topic. So the protection system, 56% of children and adolescents who are protected are in a protected system when it shouldn't be this way. And as far as disabilities, there is a long waiting list. It's the highest in the last 7 years. And here, PINCat has a very clear position. We need to disinstitutionalize the fact that no children younger than 5 years old should be in a center. So between 20 and 2022, the children between 3 and 6 years old that are in centers has gone up significantly. There are a lot of information here. So 2 out of 10 infants has health problems. In Catalonia, there's more than 100,000 children without a pediatrician. And with children who live in a vulnerable house have more possibilities of having a health problem or obesity problem, and suicide is also being the first cause of death in this age range. So here we want to insist on the fact that we need to put more resources on prevention and work on the mental health of our children and adolescents, improve the circuits and detect all the problems in time, and educate the children. So here we need to talk about education and cultural activities. Here we will talk about children who leave school prematurely. These are the worst data in Europe. Right now it's 16.9%. It was 19 before, but the average in Europe is 9.6, and here in Catalonia is 13.3. And here we see that children, adolescents, didn't have any younger than 18 years old. They didn't have any studies, and this was as much as 97,000 adolescents, which is a lot of children. We're also talking about special needs children, and this information is there because Catalonia is investing 1/3% of the money in education, less than in Spain and much less than in Europe. We need to get close to the 6% of the investment. We need more help, at least to get to of 4%. This is what UNESCO is asking, and to work on the fact that the inclusive school becomes a reality in Catalonia. As far as leisure, so in two important information, out of 25 kids in a class, 4 will not do any extracurricular activities, and more than 60% of the children have not participated in any leisure activity during summer 2022. So here what we want is that we incorporate the 360 perspective and more leisure, at least one extracurricular activity a week, and also 2 weeks of leisure time during the summer. And lastly, the last block, the special measures for protection. This is the annual evolution of children and adolescents who have arrived here, non-accompanied, so just by themselves. And we know that now it is a very complex situation of new arrivals, and we need a lot of resources. We need to simplify the procedures, unify criteria, have a better coordination, and adapt our resources to every single child. Thank you so much. And to conclude, I would like to insist on the fact that the numbers of vulnerability in children and adolescents are alarming, and Catalonia is one of the worst territories in Spain. And we know that in a society where children are acknowledged and protected, it is important because that gives us the possibility to build a future that is stronger and more solid and cohesive. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Judith and PINCat, for this very insightful information on the state of the rights of children here in Catalonia. I think it's very interesting to get the situation here in Catalonia around children's rights, and also see the high rates of child poverty here in this region, which is a real concern. And I'm happy that we're all here together to also address these concerns and see how we can cooperate together to combat child poverty and all the other issues that you mentioned in your presentation. But without further ado, I would like to introduce the first round table. The conversations aim to bring together stakeholders engaged in the design, implementation and monitoring of EU policies and strategies related to children's rights, which is briefly abbreviated by the Child Guarantee. So I'd like to invite Roger Garcia, who will introduce and lead this table. Roger Garcia is Child Policy Coordinator at the UNICEF Catalonia Committee. And with him, I would also like to ask to the floor Esther Cabanes and Ricardo Ibarra. And then we have 2 speakers online, Jiri Svark and Stella Grigoras. But I'll give the floor to Roger Garcia to introduce all of them.
Hola, molt bon dia. Espero que se sent bé.
Good morning. Can you hear me? So, first, I have to be fast because we have a lack of time. I want to thank the organizers and I want to thank the opportunity of being here. So, we have already seen that we have got reference frames of action. So we've got children's rights, the agenda, just to show some examples. So we're still far. as a society that guarantees all the rights for children and adolescents. So one of the challenges is poverty and social exclusion. So we've got the challenge to eradicate it. So no matter the names, their precedents, we want to give the same opportunities to everybody, because a lot live in poverty, and there is more than 400 in Catalonia. So this has an impact on future society. So we think that here in this first roundtable, we want to talk about children and adolescents poverty. So there have been a lot of years of work on this subject. So we want to end up with this reality. And this is one of the aims of the European Union. So one of the main points is the European Children Guarantee. So this has been improved by the Council. So we want to prioritize the poor children and adolescent rights. So there's a commitment from states so that these children and adolescents can access to some aids. So we want them to have free education, leisure activities, a good home, and a good diet and feeding. So we also want to put the focus on the most vulnerable children who are living in poor families or immigrants, among others. So in this sense, I want to remark that to aim the best implementation of guarantee, there has been a pilot plan to analyze deeply the situation and activate the corresponding plans. So this has to be a good tool to revert this reality. So we are talking about this, facing the challenges. So we want to see the articulation of different sectors. And first, online, there is Giris Bark, who is the head of child policies, of social policies. Yeah. And he's also the responsible of other subjects. So he also defines himself as an active supporter of inclusion. So thank you for being with us. And also we have Stella Grigoras, who is a doctor in sociology and assesses UNICEF in Europe and Asia, in Central Asia. So she wants to implement changes in protection. So she was also work minister in Moldavia and also for a British ENS. Welcome. So here physically, we've got Ricardo Ibarra, director of Plataforma de Infancia in Spain, informatic engineer, and he was the president of Consell de Joventut, and now is in the Assessing Council. So thanks for being here. And we also have here Esther Cabanes. You know her already, General Direction of Attention to Children and Adolescents, and responsible of the area to attention to children and adolescents. So thank you all for being here. So we start. We don't have much time, so let's try to be brief. We wanted to give like 4-minute interventions. So we want to give concrete questions to all the speakers. So the first question is, I hope to pronounce well your surname, Mr. Svark. So regarding European Commission's role and all the work done, so there are 7 states. Spain is here, so we want to see the evaluation of the Commission and what does the Commission still have to do together with the other components to guarantee the implementation. Also, we want to know which is your opinion of the third sector role, which has to be the role.
Thank you very much for inviting me to this event. We are very on the Commission side. We are very, I would say, pleased with the way that the Child Guarantee Initiative has been picked up. Because originally, or since the very beginning, we wanted to propose something very concrete. We do have a number of general policies that relate to children rights, to investing in children in general, or participation in childcare. But here, as a part of the implementation of the European Pillar of Social Rights and the Pillar Action Plan, the original idea was to come up with something really concrete. And I think we have managed that. The Council, the Member States have adopted this approach. And now we have a very specific initiative that is helping children out of poverty, focusing on equal opportunities. The key idea is to ensure that the children in poverty or with specific disadvantages have equal access to certain services as well as their more fortunate peers. And in this sense, the Child Guarantee offers a additional support, something more that should be provided for children in poverty, additional push so that their starting line is equalized at the start of their lives. So as for the implementation and what the Commission can do in this sense, we are, first of all, in very intense contacts with the National Child Guarantee Coordinators Network in Member States. This has proven very efficient in terms of mutual learning, in understanding of the different needs in different countries, because obviously there are many different systems in the countries, not only in the countries but also on the regional level, on the local level. So it is important to keep this dialogue and to learn from each other. So this is one particular aspect that we're paying attention to, showing best practices and what can be done in one country can have also a learning effect in the other countries. We have tested this approach together with UNICEF, which ran a pilot action in a number of countries, trying to implement concrete projects, and we're glad that this was a very successful initiative, and Spain was also part of this pilot testing. As for where we are with the implementation, and all member states are taking actions, and that's important. We have not received yet the action plans from 2 member states, from Latvia and Austria. But we see in all member states that actions are being taken. For example, the network of local coordinators in Portugal to implement the guarantee, introduction of free meals in Croatia, or extension of childcare and child meals in school days in Netherlands, and I can go on with these examples. So, and that is most important, that things are happening on the ground. We also, in order to capture where we are also preparing a EU-level monitoring framework to understand how we can, with which kind of indicators we can monitor the progress. This is an extensive work, and we hope to finalize the monitoring framework by the end of the year to make sure that the member states can report their progress in March next year. This is the next stage for us to receive reports from member states where they are with the implementation of this particular initiative. We obviously are providing regular feedback to member states, which has proven to be helpful in implementation, and we will obviously analyze the reports that will be coming and make them available also on the webpage of the child guarantee, so that everybody can have a look for themselves. You also mentioned the cooperation with the civil society. This is also very important for us. A number of organizations civil society organizations dealing with child rights, child poverty, are also taking part at some of the meetings of the child guarantee coordinators, presenting their work. It is also part of the initiative itself that member states need to consult the civil society in their home countries to ensure that the measures for child guarantee are well designed and well implemented. And we also appreciate the work that the civil society is doing in terms of monitoring the progress, raising issues, and this is an important role to keep advocating for more and more efficient implementation of this and other initiatives that relate to fighting child poverty and supporting children's rights. I will stop here because we have limited time, and I think I went well over my 4 minutes, so I will be available for further questions.
Muchas gracias, señor Var. Gracias.
Thank you for your brevity. So we want to continue with Mrs. Grigoras. So we are committed to analyze child poverty plans, so as a responsible. And on the line of the previous question, which is the evaluation of the current state of the guarantee, how are countries moving, working to implement it, and which has to be the role of UNICEF And the same question. Which is your vision of the third sector role? How can we improve it to fight poverty?
Well, hello everyone. I think I missed most of the questions because I didn't hear anything in our channel. So I assume that it is, unless you can repeat it, it is also about the progress achieved by European Child Guarantee, and there are also different stakeholders in supporting implementation. So this is what I pitched at the end of of the question, but I'm not sure. So if you can repeat it, that would be good. Now that I hear you.
Yes, the question. But the question is that what's the role? What's your opinion about the situation of the child guarantee and all the things that the countries are working and doing nowadays, and also the role of an organization like UNICEF in this implementation, and the role of the sector to implement this instrument.
Okay. First, much for the invitation. I think it's a great event, and congratulations for the event, congratulations for the report, and for everything that Spain and Catalonia has done for European Child Guarantee. From the UNICEF point of view, we think that this is critical investment in the future of our societies and our economies. And as Iris said, we've implemented the pilot phase for European Child Guarantee in a number of countries, including Spain. And we have tasted, and witnessed the transformative power of the European Child Guarantee and the impact on the children's lives, on the lives of the families, on the lives of communities. So we've seen lots of the positive changes that European Child Guarantee, even in a tasting phase, was bringing to the children, families, and communities and societies at large. And we've seen, in these 7 member states, how barriers to accessing essential services were being eliminated, that how children were given chance to access the support they need to thrive. And we've seen also how, a joint vision, the right resources, and the committed work, can lead to services that are provided in a more inclusive way, integrated way, and that are reaching beyond the barriers. And we also have witnessed how national and subnational authorities, together with civil society organizations, but also with families and communities, can work together to produce this more better and more sustainable results for children. And I'm convinced that European Child Guarantee will impact on the lives of so many children in EU, but also beyond EU. But also, I think that to monitor the progress and to really, evaluate the results for children, we need a very robust money framework, at the EU level, at the national level, at the subnational level. And I think that at the same time that monitoring the implementation and evaluating the results is quite challenging in the EU. And, we've done an internal analysis of all of the national action plans that have been submitted by the member states. And we've seen that there are 2 countries that are doing quite well. And they are systematically collecting data on access to services for different groups of children. And they monitor progress in overcoming existing barriers and ensuring effective and free access, which is, the sense of European Child Guarantee. But also at the same time, our analysis has showed that in some countries have very sound frameworks in place, and that can serve as very good examples for others, while other plans leave open how they will monitor implementation and evaluate the results, including what indicators they will collect data for and how they will disaggregate this data for groups of children that you've mentioned, before us. In particular, children that have complex needs or overlapping disadvantages, how they will, close the data gaps and how they will address issues related to quality and comparability of governance. So in general, what we feel here at UNICEF, that these groups of children are largely missing from standard data collection instruments in many countries. And the main data source is administrative data, but also our assessment shows that in many countries, these administrative systems, they need strengthening to be able to generate good quality comparable data, and which they can use also to produce national statistics and in line with statistical, standards. And of course, what is UNICEF role? As the pilot phase has finished, but we're still, working to continue to ensure that the European Child Guarantee is implemented on the ground. And we are very committed to work, at least now, in few directions. So first of all, to support the Commission, but also the national and subnational authorities to develop robust monitoring evaluation frameworks. For example, with the Commission, we're still working on identification of so-called national level indicators, and we really hope that at least 2 indicators that we are really fond of about children in alternative care will be included in the framework that Yuri has mentioned. We also support the individual member states with their direct requests on issues related to the monitoring evaluation framework and indicators, but also we are providing technical assistance to a number of member states as part of the European Commission Technical Support Instrument of the DG reform. And we are working with different governments on different elements of implementation. So for example, in Luxembourg, we support the government to develop an M&E framework for the European Child Guarantee Plan, but also for their child rights strategy, as well as to develop a framework that they can use to involve different stakeholders, and with particular focus on children, in participatory monitoring. But also, in Greece, for example, in addition to the M&E monitoring evaluation work, we support the government to develop mechanisms for governing the European Child Guarantee. So I think that, and the second direction, and I will stop here with this question, is that we really want European Child Guarantee to be implemented at the subnational level. And here we're trying to develop different alliances with different organizations. For example, Zero Cities, which have initiated a partnership to really support subnational authorities to build their capacities, to be able to localize the implementation of the European Child Guarantee, but in general, the social pillar on social rights. So, but also including now, the support that is being offered for the integration of children, refugee children from Ukraine. But of course, much more needs to be done by the Commission, by actors like UNICEF, by civil society organizations, by member states themselves. I think that as Yuri mentioned, it's so important to have these active platforms by which, member states can learn together, can learn from each other. And of course, many member states will need a lot of technical assistance and policy guidance to close, these implementation gaps or data gaps, as I mentioned before. So I'll stop here with this question. Thank you very much.
Moltes gràcies. Senyor Ibarra, com a representant...
So, Mr. Ibarra, as a presenter of the platform, in November, there was a meeting in Valencia and there was also an event of reflection. So we wanted you to share the conclusions and your evaluation and what are your requirements to administrations for success. So you, as a presenter of the third sector, how do you see its role to fight children poverty? So, sorry, I don't have a good Catalan, I will speak in Spanish. So, regarding infant guarantee, we've got high expectative. So, we have to focus on the aim. We don't have capacity, resources to reduce such high rates. So in Spain, there are 1/3 of the children that are poor. So the children and teens guarantee will move a huge quantity of euros that is in fact less than 500 per child, but it has got a very important active if we take advantage. So in the conference in Valencia, we were talking about focused programs. So we want to give attention to lack of materials, to the access of quality education. So we've got programs focalized on the children with the worst situation. So here, this guarantee can be a change. And another question is the government. So there's a moment that there will be no finances, maybe 30, 40 years. So we have to think about the change. If we have to change programs, methodology. So this is one of our ambitions. So we have to see how do we work, how do we act, how do we guarantee coordination of agents, departments, NGOs. How do we work on a multi-level frame, autonomies, states? How do we take maximum advantage of resources? How we are thinking in Garantía Juvenil or Arnajus. So we have to change our way of acting. And to finish, if we want to implement new measures, we have to be more ambitious. So I think we need more preventive measures. So we have to try to eradicate poverty because we don't invest a lot comparing to Europe. So like maybe 12,000 millions of euros, because a lot of countries have got aids to breed children. And we want to reinforce the wealth state, wellness, like opticians, dentists, to guarantee their access to leisure, culture. So with this, we can reduce the numbers. Thank you, Ricardo, Mrs. Cabanas. So in this sense, the Garantía is generating changes. So first, we were talking about strategy against Catalan poverty. So we want to know how we will implement this strategy and how is Generalitat coordinating with the actors. So this is a very long, hard question to answer. So regarding Garantía Infantil, we are celebrating that something has been put on the table because childhood has been now put on the table. So we saw that to invest on them so that they, when become adults, can contribute on the society. So now we are celebrating our 34th anniversary of the most known convention and recognized. But I bet that no one can explain the children's rights. But children are the most important. No, we all are. So now they have been put on the agenda. So for Generalitat, it's very important to be recognized because we weren't. So now it seems that we have access to childhood because they cannot move forward alone. They need adults. So we all need to know children's rights. So from here we have a lot of important work to do. So the guarantee gives importance to money to cover the biggest necessities from an economical point of view. And we have to guarantee the development, physical, not only disease absence, guarantee the emotional development. They need to be visible. Also guarantee their learning, all subjects, but also respect, values, empathy, solidarity. So they need to learn on other fields. So we as adults need to give them this learning. So family are people on who they rely. And they need to have enough support. But there is a problem. So there are poor families, and society and government have to provide all the things that they need. Support breathing, fight against vulnerability. So, okay, I will stop here because I have reached the 4 minutes.
Remind me if you know better, you correct me. You can reflect and and here there's a little space that we have in the room and the program, and after the second table you can do that. We are running out of time, so Mr. Svarch, one of the reflections that I would like to do in this second round of questions, taking into account the scenario of the European elections in June, I would like to see what do we need to consolidate, and what can we find after the elections? How can this affect the Commission?
Yes, thank you. In terms of the child guarantee initiative itself, the elections should not necessarily play any role in its implementation. I think we have the recommendation is agreed. The child guarantee principles should, in principle, be implemented by 2030. That's the commitment of the Council of the member states. So it is an initiative that goes beyond the mandate of this Commission or the European Parliament. It has established a good sort of implementation rhythm and mechanisms. We have national action plans, or at least a great majority of them in place. We will soon be talking about the reports from member states. So I think we are on a good path there. There are obviously beyond this, there are and there will be political reflections how to take this and other social policy initiatives further. We understand that there is a big commitment of the current Spanish presidency, but also upcoming Belgian presidency, to continue with the sort of high political profile of the European Pillar of Social Rights and all its initiatives, including child guarantee, among many others. For you to be aware, the childcare and support to children is one of the pillar principles, so that remains. We also understand that the Belgian presidency is preparing high-level meeting spring next year in La Hulpe, which should provide for further political guidelines on the social policies for the next years to come. So we are confident that the child guarantee and related activities will continue and maybe even with upgraded speed and actions. We see that the member states authorities are committed to work on this further, and we will obviously, from the Commission part, support them also in the next years to make sure that we implement what is agreed in the recommendation.
Muchas gracias, señor Vars. Y señora Grigora.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zvark and Ms. Grigoras. We need to be short, but I wanted to ask you if you had to synthesize, summarize just a concrete, a specific recommendation so that this warranty becomes successful in all the states and also in Spain, because it's a highly decentralized state, no, here in Spain. But what would be your recommendation for this process to be successful?
Okay, thank you very much for this question. It's a very interesting one and very important one, and this is really going to impact the way the European Child Guarantee is being implemented. And of course, from our point of view, effective and fair access to basic services for the most, vulnerable groups, children, is really crucial. But also we need to think, in each country, what are the targeted or specialized services we need to develop as well, yeah? In order to ensure that we can reach to those children that, as we are calling them, invisible groups of children that usually have complex needs and usually do not come to access the services. And in order to do that, definitely you need a very coordinated effort between multiple policy areas and institutions. And we see that many governments will need a little bit of support to address this institutional and administrative capacity shortcomings, as mentioned as well. So I think that, just to say, what are the main areas that we see at the moment, as I mentioned before, the M&E framework. So I think that this is something that the countries should focus on, to develop robust M&E framework in order to be able to monitor and know what's happening with the implementation and adjust the plan and go ahead with, achieving results for children. But also ensuring that there is an integrated and multidimensional approach, and that is very closely connected to the context in each of the country at different subnational levels. Yes, we still see that in many countries in the EU, unfortunately, there is a fragmentation of responsibility between different, level of authorities for child well-being, for child protection, and unfortunately, this fragmentation provides like an additional challenge sometimes for the implementation of the European Child Guarantee, because it doesn't allow to really provide coherent, integrated services that can holistically approach the needs of children, families, and communities. And I think that in Spain as well, but in other countries, there is this very serious, strong territorial dimension of child poverty, and not all of the countries have yet found the solutions how to address this territorial dimension and how to involve different level of governance to implement European Child Guarantee. And unfortunately, these geographic disparities, if they perpetuate, then if there is no equal access to funding proportionately to the needs of those authorities, then there is a big, problem, let's say, for the implementation of the European Child Guarantee, and we can have more inequality on the ground. I think that there is also, an issue maybe in some of the countries with the mandate or ability of the national coordinator. So, because it is a multi-sectoral, multi-dimensional, let's say, approach, we need strong coordinators to ensure that all actors work together to produce the results for children. And probably one more thing that I would like to mention is how the countries, involve and beneficiaries. I know Spain was good in piloting phase. Spain was really good in involving child participation to really design the National Action Plan for Child Guarantee. But I think that it's so important that now then the implementation started, that we, have more capacities at different level of governance as well to implement children in the implementation, in the monitoring, and in the evaluation. Because if we don't include these beneficiaries, then that will lead to, let's say, less targeted, less needs-based, less inclusive, less, let's say, culturally sensitive service delivery. So I think that this is something that we really need to work for. And I think that, that's mainly the areas that we think needs to be addressed at the moment when we still are in initial phase of implementation, in order to ensure that we don't waste time, we don't waste resources, and we somehow all work together to ensure the better results for children. And these processes should happen everywhere in Europe. And I think that also maybe to start thinking about a little bit of the next phase, what's next after European Child Guarantee, because, as I said, basic services is really, really important. But also we see that there are so many groups of children that it's not just that they are living in poverty and social exclusion, but they have multiple vulnerabilities. We have children with disabilities, as you've mentioned in your report, children from minority, racial, ethnic, migrant children, refugee children. So I think that we need to really plan for these groups of children, to address their needs now, but also to plan for how these children will develop in the future. And you've mentioned, I think, that something about, more comprehensive prevention, more early intervention services at the community level to support children and families at a very early phase when the problem just arises. And I think that there is a dear need for more integrated child protection family support services. And I think that our work with the Commission for the phase 3 has shown that we need to have more integrated child protection systems. And because to overcome, isolated, fragmented, reactive initiatives that we sometimes see in member states and in the plans that they have developed. And I think that also deinstitutionalization, something that we've been achieving good results, but still I think remains a challenge in Europe. And we've seen with the huge influx of Ukrainian children, but also other children from other countries. We've seen that not all the time child protection systems are really strong enough to be able to respond effectively to the new influx of children, but also to the multiple problems that faced by children. And that's why I think that we as UNICEF, we are so pleased to see that European Commission is planning a new initiative to have a new recommendation on integrated child protection system. And we believe that a strong push at the EU level will encourage member states to establish inclusive, effective, integrated child protection systems that will include a comprehensive continuum of services from prevention to protection to support, including early identification, judicial intervention, covering various elements across the system as human and financial resources and governance structures and coordination mechanism and civil society organization and their role in the provision of this continuum. So I think that we are in the absolutely right direction, and I think that the European Commission is providing a long-term vision of how European Child Guarantee and future recommendations can be developed and implemented in EU. I'll stop here. Thank you very much.
Moltes gràcies, senyora Grigoras. Suposo que aquí...
Thank you, Mrs. Grigoras. So, as you may have heard, we are out of time, but I want to give you the same opportunity. So, Mr. Ibarra, a lot of times we have mentioned child participation, so I want to see which role can they have as citizens to fight poverty. Be brief, please. So, we wish to involve children and teens in decisions. So we need to have this in account. So I wanted to say that we have the right to listen kids. So when we take decisions, we need to listen to them truly, to hear their opinions and keep them into account when we develop programs. So we have to count on them to design, implement, evaluate. So we need to change radically in our actions on how do we work with kids and adolescents to work in all the steps of their living. So we need to have channels to hear their opinions, not only take photos, so to have processes to tell them what have we done. So we need to take into account to what we have heard a lot. So we need to take them into account. This is written in a document. So we need to rethink about it. How do we listen to children, teens? So how would we like somebody to take us into account as adults? So there are two key questions. To adapt to different ages and guarantee that we hear all the voices, because not all of them have the same opportunities. We need to take into account accessibility, disabilities, immigrants, kids who are especially vulnerable, and they need to have their voice in a process such as childhood guarantee. We don't have to stigmatize. So we need to design programs concerning population in general, take into account collectives that can be stigmatized. So if we achieve all this, we will get more efficient, effective, and more impacting programs, because they will feel the program as their own and they will imply more. So thank you, Ricardo. Mrs. Cabanas, to finish. If you have to make a headline about what does a government need, such as Generalitat, what do we need to move forward with this guarantee? So which is your demand? So first, we need a plan, planify what we want to do. So we have accomplished José Antonio's dream, which will be presented on Monday. Kids, Catalan kids and adolescents have helped with it. So we need a strategy plan, Barnahus strategy against violence, and we have presented an improvement plan. And we have counted with children and adolescents. So we have to see, to hear them. We don't have to make interpretations. So we want to celebrate also 20th of November each year. And we need to work as a team. From a more intersectional perspective, we will arrive to the right directions together. Thank you. So thank you. To finish, I think that we can keep these ideas, that the childhood guarantee is not the solution, but one of the steps. We need investments to guarantee things. But this will be an opportunity to guarantee non-poverty. And this has also shaped the way of working and the idea that no matter what, there is the commitment of moving forward and the role, importance of third sector to keep pushing. So we keep working on the agenda. So thank you to all the participants, both presential and online. Thank you for your effort and time, and we continue with this event. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger Garcia. Thank you, all the speakers, for this very interesting and insightful roundtable that we've just been listening to, with views from the European Commission, from UNICEF, but also the Plataforma and the government here in Catalonia. But without further ado, I also would like to welcome, actually, because we just had a group of students on social education that entered the room. You're all very welcome that you are joining us today. And they're students here from the faculty that is hosting us today at the event. And I also would like to remind you, on the walls there are the QR codes to access Slido, and when you go on there you can put in your questions for the next roundtable where there's more interaction going to happen. But before we go to the next roundtable, I would like to give the floor to Chus Morata. She's going to give an overview of the work that the campus that is hosting us today is doing in terms of learning and research on leisure education and socio-cultural action. The floor is yours, Chus.
Thank you. So first, thank you for participating. I will try to be very fast because we are out of time. So I will give a presentation on research in action and innovation facing vulnerable infants and adolescents. So I don't know what's happening now. If somebody can help me a bit. Okay. So this presentation will be focused on 3 subjects. First, what do we do in this faculty, in our cátedra? I will introduce some researches that we are now doing from 10 years on educational leisure directed to vulnerable children and adolescents. So I will introduce different subjects from these researches and some challenges that have been raised from these researches. So our cátedra wants to work on promotion on social leisure and culture to achieve 3 aspects: knowledge and initiatives from 4 acting: training, research, knowledge, and knowledge transmission. So we are working on conference, on some publications, assessing, resources, training. So I want to rush and it's giving problems, sorry. So this cátedra has got a territory frame working with national and international universities, and we are on a network of entities to show who's working on leisure. So our subjects are focused on systems, so different perspectives from educational leisure, different systems that we are focusing on with research and studies. So I will move quickly on these diapositives, but I wanted to collect all the subjects we are working on. So academic and working competencies. So we can see that children and teens have identified that leisure activities have helped them to improve competencies, social, civic, learn to learn, flexibility, conflict resolutions. So developing LOPD, Studies show that we have to move forward on these subjects. So the third subject is related to vulnerable audience. So leisure acts as prevention and an activator of community life. The fourth thematic, related with social cohesion, show that educational leisure brings social support and it helps territories develop identity. And relating to interculturality, it provides inclusion, and we need training on intercultural competencies. And then also, we see that SARS increase self-esteem, empowering, and gives them an opportunity to socialize. And now we go to the challenges. So we have seen like 13 researches and 5 theses. So now all these challenges come from that. So the first subject has to do with competencies. And here we see the 4 challenges. The first one is the equal access to leisure, educational leisure. So here it's very important that the public agenda implements measures. We need to increase resources. Not only economical, but also helping them. The second challenge is to work together on a network. We need to visualize that we are all dependent, and we need a transversal perspective. Families have to recognize the value of leisure on their children's development, but also schools, health, so that they can make people recognize activities. The third challenge is related to the improvement and implementation of new methodologies. We need to highlight the importance of learning and participation, contact with natural environment, and working on the teenagers so that they can count on adult references. So we need to design and planify an activity program. We need also to implement methodologies with languages and give importance to necessities. And finally, we need to make research and take care of pedagogical quality. In all sectors, we need to incorporate evaluation indicators to see how do these activities evolve and impact on children and adolescents. We need to generate also debating spaces and offer resources and materials. And we need to give capacities to professionals, giving them training. So I have explained it very quickly, the 4 challenges we are developing, and they give us very important challenges to work with all teens and kids, especially vulnerable ones. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Thius, and also for reducing your time in doing your real elevator pitch. I think it was a real elevator pitch, which normally is quite short, and you managed even to make it even a lot shorter than that you prepared. Thank you very much for this very insightful work that you're doing here at the university. So without further ado, I would like to move on to the next second panel, which is going to be chaired by Kieran O'Donnell, who's my colleague at Eurochild. He's their Partnerships and Programs Officer. And the other speakers that are going to join the panel are Bettina Schwarzmeier, Hendrik Norgaard, Margaret White, Mattia de Bij, and Elisandra Xivre. And the panel will be dedicated to bringing together territorial perspectives, so from the local, regional, and national level, and to bring up a more bottom-up approach on how to address children's rights and children's rights proposals by the third sector. So please, you're all welcome to the floor.
Hello, hello. Can we all hear? I think so. Okay. Bon dia, everyone. We're a little bit over time, as you might have already heard. So we're getting close to buona tarda. Pero, my name is Kieran O'Donnell. I'm here to moderate this session. I will protect my speaker's time by cutting down my own. And without further ado, just to give a little bit of context, today we have already started with a bird's eye view of children's rights issues at national level, at EU level, at international level, with our distinguished speakers from the Commission, from the European Commission, from UNICEF, from Plataforma Infancia, Eurochild, one of Eurochild's leading member in Spain, and also Catalonia's regional government. Now with our second table, our round table, we're going to shift to the local level. We've been hearing this morning about what we need to do to support children in need, in vulnerability, growing up in poverty, and all the intersectional vulnerabilities that come with. And now we will hear about what we are doing, taking country-level examples from our distinguished speakers in this roundtable. We are going to hear about various different initiatives that, building on what Stella mentioned in her response in her question in the last session, around the importance of intervention and early intervention and prevention at local level, and that's precisely what our speakers will be sharing about their examples and expertise. We will explore methodologies that are supporting the inclusion of children in alternative care and those who are unaccompanied, providing leisure opportunities for children at risk of vulnerability, providing care for the needs of children and youngsters with autism, disabilities, or mental health issues, and that are fostering meaningful child participation at local level as well. Of course, we'll also explore the role of child poverty and the intersection with these elements too. So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our speakers. Firstly, we'll hear from Mattia de Bij, who's a board member at the CNCA network, the National Coordination of Welcoming Communities in Italy. He'll be speaking about his network's role in supporting unaccompanied children and young people in Italy. Then we'll have Henrik Norgaard, community consultant with Brøn, the bridge from Denmark, who will be speaking about leisure education for children in need, a topic that we've already discussed quite a bit in the earlier sessions, and I'm sure you'll be interested to hear more of. Thirdly, we have Margaret White, director of Prisms Association in Malta, social innovation supports, providing social innovation supports for children with autism. Then we have Bettina Schwarzmeier, who's educational director at the Children and Youth Agency in Wien Extra at the city of Vienna in Austria, building meaningful child participation at local level. We in Eurochild, we know about the work of Bettina and her colleagues in Vienna at a European level because they are inspirational in the practices of developing meaningful child participation. And in other projects that we're participating in with partners in Budapest, in Hungary, for example, or in Naples in Italy, we're trying to mimic or build on or mirror the good practices that are being done in Vienna. So I'm really excited for this. Lastly, but not least, we're going back to local, to here in Barcelona, to Catalonia, to Elisandra Xivre, who's president of FADAIA, the network of social organizations advancing children's rights in Catalonia, who is on the board of PINCat, or a member of PINCat, and also is a Eurochild member as well, and who are pushing for children in poverty to be prioritized. Each speaker, through their organizational expertise, works with children in ways that are crucially important for realizing the European Child Guarantee and children's rights at a European level, at local level as well. And that's why they're going to be speaking to their various pieces. We'll proceed in the order I've introduced the speakers. and we shall begin. As a reminder, as you already will know, the session is being live interpreted into Catalan or into English. When Elisenda speaks, she'll be doing so in Catalan, just as a heads up for this. For those of us like me who are practicing our Catalan, but we aren't there yet. Okay, to begin, Mattia, you first and then following. Can you please introduce your organization, your mission, and your work? Each speaker will have for this session, this question, about 1 to 2 minutes. I'll do some efforts for timekeeping purposes as well. We aim to finish up this session around 1 o'clock. Bon, we shall try. Mattia, to you.
Hi everybody, and I want to at first thank you all the organizations and for these invitations. It's an honor for me to be here from Italy. My name is Mattia De Bay. I'm representing CNCA. Very briefly, what is CNCA? CNCA stands for National Coordination of Welcoming Communities. It's a network, Italian network of many organizations, big ones and small ones, NGOs, Association of Volunteers in Italy. It was born in 1982 as a sort of movement of people who really believe in try to fight against poverty, against marginalization in Italy. And the founders started to create many different welcoming communities in Italy to host people with disability, homeless, minors out of family, etc., but also living with them, with this kind of lifestyle choice. In the years, CNCA has grown as a place of dialogue between organizations. It is a time, a place where organizations can meet together and dialogue. Then another important role of CNCA is on the political and cultural aspect. This from the beginning. Now CNCA is formed about 260 organizations in Italy, in the whole Italian territory, promoting various sectors of social activity with marginalization, fight against poverty, and so on, with a common goal of promoting citizenship rights and collective well-being. I specifically collaborated with the CNCA on a specific phenomenon, the one that involves unaccompanied migrant minors. It is an important theme now, especially in Italy, but I think in Europe too.
Thank you very much. Over to you, Henrik, as well. And just to warn speakers, I'll give you a heads up about 15 seconds before your time should end, just to wrap up as well. Henrik, over to you. Also, apologies, if you have any questions you want to submit to the panel, please use the Slido. You can find the hashtag around, or the QR code around the room as well. Thank you. Over to you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I come from Broen, which means the bridge. It's a small NGO in Denmark that helps vulnerable children to enjoy an active leisure life in local sports clubs and leisure time activities like scouting, music, dancing, etc. Broen aims to support socially disadvantaged children and young people with quotas and equipment for sports and other leisure activities. And the goal is to get the children out among other children where they can be part of a positive community and mirror themselves in adult role models and thus gain successful experiences and a strengthened belief in themselves. We have 33 local groups of Broen around Denmark, and in 2022 we helped almost 7,000 children and young people to an active leisure life. Broen Denmark is the umbrella for these local organizations, and we help the local Broen associations with fundraising, with communication, with exchange of experiences, and with contact to the political network in Denmark. It was started as a private initiative in 2002 in Horsens, and since 2009, Broen Denmark has been had the task of spreading the experience and helping new Broen associations to start. We rely on private and public funding, and we are a member-based organization, and we are being led by a national board with representatives from the local Broen associations.
Great.
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay, Margaret.
So, hello everyone, I'm very happy to be here. I am Margaret from Malta. I am representing an organization called PRISMS. It is a local organization, however, we work a lot at a EU level as well through Erasmus Plus funds and other types of funding. At the core of what PRISMS, what we do at PRISMS is we try to create safe spaces. So we work a lot with young people, we are mostly youth workers, with vulnerable young people, disability, migrants, mental health, socially disadvantaged, and also with educators. We believe a lot that it has to be a twofold way, so work with the young people and then their families and their educators.
Hello, my name is Bettina. Thank you for the invitation and the opportunity. I'm here for the city of Vienna, or better, its youth agency Vinextra. The first parts of our organization were funded more than 70 years ago. We started developing a fun holiday program for families who could not afford to go to the countryside or even on holiday in summer. And from this perspective on, we developed in the thinking or the logic of the city administration, we do everything that is on culture, leisure, democracy, participation, and prevention of bad habits, whilst our colleagues from the youth welfare do the material needs, the intervention if violence has already occurred, and all the protection. So we get to do the fun part, but of course that is also linked to making sure our activities are known about and accessible for children living in poverty or are at risk of poverty, children with specific needs due to disabilities or language barriers, and just making sure that children and young people generally are listened to and are actually heard by the administrators and politicians of the city.
Last but not least, Alessandra.
Hola, bon dia. Merci també per convidar-nos.
Thank you for being invited. So I represent Fedaya here in Catalonia. There are like 100 entities around Catalonia, and we work accompanying and giving attention to kids, teens, and their families in poverty or in risk on social exclusions. We try to prevent, but we also give protections, residential centers, flats, and we also give services to education as WEX. We are an committed organization with social transforming, and we try to guarantee children and teens' rights. We promote these rights, and we defend that we can achieve an equality of opportunities. We mainly focus on rights such as education, training, participation, health, good treatment. If there is negligence, abuse, or violence.
Everyone for introducing yourselves, and we'll crack on, as we say in Ireland, to the next question, What are the perceived challenges among children in vulnerable circumstances in your local and national level? To introduce this question, we've heard during the day different comparisons of the situation in Catalonia for children in need and European level comparisons as well. I would like us to share some other national examples for the people in the room. So please, Mattia. And about 2 to 3 minutes per response, please, colleagues.
But in Italy, the situation is not so different from respect to the other European countries. The family poverty rate has increased at this time, also due to the pandemic phenomenon, the recent pandemic phenomenon, and consequently the situation of many children in Italy is at risk above all for vulnerable ones. In the years, CNCA has started with the proposals of many different services for the minors, above all for that more vulnerable. Welcoming communities, day center, services for prevention, network of families, and so on. One of the challenges is to try to consider them not as a standalone services, together with the public services and the public help, but as pieces of a sort of map in every territory that can help boys, girls, children to grow in a safe place. And so we believe that it's important to keep the attention of policymakers focused on the issue of safeguarding children's rights, but at the same time to disseminate all these best practices in a national and international level to adapt them to the specific local needs. Another point, interest point for CNCA is to, how to work with the civil society and with the communities. And all the CNCA document was titled as the famous African proverb, "It takes a village to raise a child." And this means that this has become a sort of mantra for CNCA to build around every service a sort of network of a relationship, of a competence, of new skills in the communities around the stories of this child. This is an important question that is also a cross-cutting considerations that interest all the areas of activity. So building a network attentive to its most vulnerable citizens with the perspective of shared responsibility and reciprocity. We can adapt this consideration also to the phenomenon I anticipate before of unaccompanied migrant minors, minors that are in Italian land coming from incredible journeys. Now in Italy there are about 25,000 of unaccompanied minors, and this put really at risk the respect of their rights. There is in Italy, I want to share the fact that there is an important law from since 2017 that frames all the rights of the unaccompanied minors and introduce roles as, for example, the voluntary legal guardian, that is a trained citizen with the role of legal representation for the minors. But today, the high number of arrivals, together with the shortage of accommodation places, really endanger this virtuous system. So this is a great challenge for us in Italy in this moment.
Great, thank you, Mattia. Henrik, over to you.
We are very occupied with having children and young people being active in the daily life, and research shows that children in families where the parents are not active with sport and training are less likely to be active themselves. And also, if the parents are without work, the children are less active with sport and training. So we also know that in families with few economic resources, the leisure activities are likely not to be prioritized. And that's why we try to build bridges for the poor families to let the children be active in the leisure life. Because we know if the children are not part of leisure activities, they are also not so much part of a positive community and group with other children, and they are more likely to be isolated at home or risking to be part of negative communities or groups. And that's what the bridge to the active leisure life is supposed to prevent.
Yeah. Great, thank you. Margaret.
I think we cannot speak of the challenges of children and young people without speaking about our own challenges. I think the young people are prophets in a way because they can show us what we are lacking. In Malta, and I think not just in Malta, all over the world right now, there's a lot of chaos, anxiety, and I think our young people are speaking to us by highlighting what is needed. When it comes to sadness, for example, young people feel depressed. I am very saddened how the #1 killer of young people is suicide. If we stop a little bit and think about this, it is unnatural. It is the best time of their life, and they are choosing to give it up. So we are living in this world where connections, human connections, I think are the most important, where we feel that we belong, where people can see us, but not just physically, they really see us, who we are. And at the moment I'm working a lot with persons with autism and also persons with eating disorders. And last week we had a discussion, and the main topic of the young people with eating disorders, they told us, I don't know who I am. And if I don't know who I am, how can I love myself? And I think that is the biggest thing that we are experiencing in our young people and in our society. We have become so fluid that there isn't any ground, there isn't any constant. Everything is changing so fast. And I think that is one of the biggest challenges.
Thank you for sharing. Bettina.
As the colleague who used to sit here just a minute ago said earlier, one key tool to improve the lives of children is to bundle all the efforts and put it down in a strategy. And that's something Vinextra was given the task of by the city of Vienna, that we should come up with a children and youth strategy for the city. And we identified that this strategy should be developed by children and young people. And we made special efforts to reach out to those who need the support and care of a commune like Vienna the most. And the 5 groups we identified there were unaccompanied minors, refugees, and people new to the country. Children in care, who are actually in the custody of the community. Children with disabilities, chronic diseases, or long-term illness. Children living in poverty or at risk of poverty, and juvenile delinquents. And through a set of workshops, in total we did 1,300 workshops with an average of 17 participants. A lot of those workshops were done with these target groups in their care facilities, in their schools, in their homes, in their scout groups or whatever. And there are many very tangible results that we found out. And it was evident that one thing is that they need to recognize and know all these measures that are supposed to address them, and therefore an easy way is to involve them in the development of this. They need to be understood, which would be taken care of if they are involved from the beginning. They need to be accessed and reached physically and mentally, and then they need to be used. And to name a few examples, let's take unaccompanied minors, refugees, or new to the country. here it was clear that many are not fluent in German. So how do you deal with that issue? First, we translated lots of our publications and so on, which raised the expectation that also the activities and programs are run in all those different languages. But we couldn't guarantee that because we couldn't have each of our offers and programs run by 8 different people speaking 16 languages. So now we switched to have a basic information for the family or parents that they know what's going on, but have as a working language German, which is also relevant to build the community and to like interact with all the others. Or with disability, of course, there are quite some offers in the area of leisure and culture that are accessible for different types of disabilities, but it took especially the families, predominantly the mothers, a lot of research effort to find out what type of accessibility is what offer. So what we are working on currently is that in our activity program, and we have like 200 partners and really hundreds of activities on our website, that we improve the search filters and are more descriptive, have pictures of the venues, because disabilities are so different, but the main search filters will be for blind or visually impaired people if there are guidance systems in place and guidance dogs allowed, for deaf and hard of hearing if there's a sign language offered, and if there are any induction services that for the hard of hearing, if the access to the room is stepless and stageless, if there is a disabled toilet and similar. Plus, of course, if the if it's for free or how much it is. And what we saw, especially in terms of poverty, poverty causes a lot of stress to the family. Stress means that you are avoidant to planning ahead or registering ahead. So one of the search filters we added was it happens today or tomorrow, because that's often as far as someone who is very stressed by limited financial resources can think. And I'm getting angry. Looks at Kieran. So
No. Thank you, Bettina. Alessandra.
Bé, doncs, jo no apuntaré coses que...
Well, I won't tell things that have not been told by people, by colleagues at this table, or other colleagues before. But I would like to highlight that the most important challenges that we detect in the entities day to day are related to priorities that were identified at the end of 2022. 10 of them were identified, and for us on our day-to-day activity we highlight some, like the fight against children poverty, housing exclusion, eating disorders, guaranteeing the appropriate resources and the protection, fighting against segregation at school, fighting against violence and gender problems. And these priorities have been selected because they are related to things that we do on our everyday life, and we have been encountering all these issues. All these priorities talk about they make us see what the situation is in Catalonia as far as children's rights, and they tell us that we have a lot of things to work on and a lot of tasks that need to be implemented. And from FEDAIA we also have detected many things that have already been said, but I would like to highlight as well. Everything related to the difficulty in accessing different activities for children and adolescents who are at risk of poverty and vulnerability, difficulty for guaranteeing a living situation that is appropriate, an appropriate environment with the own family or a welcoming family, a placement family. And also the fact of being able to provide visits and relationships between siblings when these are protected, when the children are protected. Also the providing treatments, health treatments, not only in mental health, but also as far as dental treatments, eye treatments. And the difficulty is not only in accessing the resources, but also when this treatment or this help, this assistance requires a specific intensity or follow-up. We've also talked about everything related to the young people who are migrants. We find the same situation here that has been pointed out by the people on the table. But I also wanted to identify, I don't know if this is related to me. Well, thank you. Well, I want to identify a difficulty that we face, which is difficulty accessing how to process all the procedures, all the legal procedures that need to be done in order to work on the documentation that these people need. And we have been, in the past, we've been able to solve this, but we still find difficulties in order to manage this documentation. And this, we want to highlight this because we think that this affects the right of being able to exercise whole citizenship, and also the right or the difficulty to warranty the protection against, violence, pornography, drug consumption. And we also wanted to highlight the difficulty that exists when trying to, as far as equality in education and work-related issues, and also accessing the leisure field and the extracurricular activities. We have prioritized these ones. There are many more, but these are the most important priorities that we wanted to highlight.
Yes, we're on. Okay, our third question. Recalling what Ms. Val said in the first welcoming remarks / opening roundtable, she mentioned that they are looking to roll out a number of pilots to help address children in need here in Catalonia. For you speakers from your different country contexts, what innovative ways to advance the rights of the child have been pioneered by local and third sector partners, such as your organization? By all means, please do draw on your own organizational expertise here, which may be inspirational for Catalonia in looking at these pilots. Mattia, the floor is yours.
Okay, I want to briefly introduce, share with you 3 experiences that I think that are best practices in Italy. The first one is a series of projects that have launched to support boys and girls living outside their family. This due to problems in the families, risk of abuse or violence or deprivation, educational deprivation, not only economical. As I said before, CNCA has developed a network of welcoming communities in Italy, and the challenge is how to support these children, these boys and girls, specifically who are moving towards independence after turning 18. So the challenge to create a place for participation of these young people in all the decisions that concern them. And the other challenge is how to build a network of resources in the territory, a network of skills. So through vocational training, introducting them to the world of work, and support for independent living. In Italy, these actions created a sort of movement that now is called Care Leavers Networks, that now, as in the years, was founded also an association of young people that meet together, that have a place for dialoguing each other, to help each other. Now this movement is also, I think, it is an European movement of care leavers, of people who are leaving their, the care system. And, but it's not only a place how to help each other, it's also a place how to they can write some proposal for institutions, for the government. In Italy, this movement succeeded in obtaining a specific fund for care leaver networks for these young people. This is the first experience I want to speak about. The second refers to the so-called restorative justice path for underage offenders. Many projects in Italy are focusing on this theme, restorative justice. Now there is an important reform law in Italy that put restorative justice as a sort of model for Italian justice. And so the projects are focusing on putting together the offenders, minors, I speak about minors, offenders, and the crime victims, trying to reach a reconciliation and possibly also the extinction of the offense through the penal mediation. And another innovative aspect is the involvement of the community as a third subject, the offender, the victim, and the community that is often a secondary victim, but also an active subject of the reconciliation process. And also there is a new role in among the professional workers. We are promoting the role of the restorative justice facilitator, an operator that works in the communities in this reconciliation process.
Mattia, if you can finish up.
Last one, only a point about we are speaking about again of the unaccompanied minors, migrant minors. I want to give you the name of the project is Terra Firme project. You can find also on internet, and it was supported by UNICEF and CNCA since 2017, financed by Europe and by supported by Child Guarantee Program. The goal of this project is to promote foster care for unaccompanied migrant minors. Foster care, we have experimented at now 100 of projects with minors through development of awareness-raising actions, training in the town, in the cities, training for families and for operator too. And this is started as an experimental project in 3 regions. Now is a national model. Terra Firme means mainland. The outcomes of this project, and I will finish, are the many stories of these young guys from other foreign countries that have experimented the families as a safe place where to stay, but also the community where they live as with this network of relationship created by the project, by the operators, by the citizens, by the teacher, by the coaches, by the administrator present in a territory, to create this, to work toward autonomy of these guys, and but with an added certainty, the support of this network that is created by the project.
Grazie. Henrik.
Broen is working together with other civil society organizations to promote children's possibilities to have an actual leisure life and to prevent the consequences of poverty among children, among families with children. And we have formed a network having the motto, Children in Poverty, No Thank You, where we try to put pressure on the politicians to promote a kind of leisure support that all children should have the possibility to have an actual leisure life. And through open letters and requests for the politicians, we try to put pressure on the politicians to make that right for every child to have the possibility to have active leisure life. We are not still there, but we are continuing putting pressure on the politicians, and we hope that we will finally get to that point one day. Yeah.
I have a lot. I will start with something that we did with a Spanish organization. We organized the Camino de Santiago walk. It was residential care home in Malta and Asociación Alba from Spain, which who has young people with intellectual and physical disabilities. And during this 12-day walk, it was so beautiful to see how they could learn from each other, forget their challenges and focus on the other person, and also to talk. We believe a lot that while you are walking in nature, it's much, much more impactful than just staying in a room and telling a young person, tell me what you're passing through. So that is one of the things that we are doing. As well, when it comes to mental health, we are doing a European project called Outbound, and we are using outdoor therapy as a form how to connect with young people with mental health, with adolescents especially. In the disability sector, as I was speaking before, we believe a lot in the creating safe spaces and connections. Last week we started a project, Points of Connection. We have Marta Campo here as well. She's one of our partners in this project, and we are creating points of connection between autistic young people and other young people, neurotypicals as well. We do a lot of mentoring as well, so when it comes to young people from a disadvantaged backgrounds, we work a lot with schools. And then from schools, we identify the young people which are most at risk for early school leaving, and we gave them 2-year mentoring. So we used to meet them every week, and the change we saw in these young people was incredible, whoever was open for it, because they needed a reference point. They needed someone that they could speak to, attach to, and then once they started to trust us, we could then help them to maybe build a bridge with the school, because they are excluded from it, from the families, from the community, giving back. Now they are growing older and they are leaders in our groups as well. So that is, we believe a lot in building that relationship. Thank you.
Thank you. Bettina.
Well, I think the big innovation when it comes to the Viennese children and youth strategy is that on one side it's an all-government strategy, so it has measures and benchmarks in the areas of health, mobility and transport, building, parks and recreation, so really across all the responsibilities of the government. And the second innovation was that usually the politicians or the respective committees or departments would draft the strategy and then maybe consult with others on it. In our case, the agenda setting was done by the children and young people. So we asked them what the strategy should be on, and the politicians stayed true to it and came up with it. And as I said, we had like 1,300 workshops where we asked the children and young people about this. And it worked, and many of these workshops were in schools, in kindergartens, in their youth groups and so on. So by the sheer amount of workshops, of course, we would also reach children living in poverty, children experiencing domestic violence, children having mental health problems. But what we could see that if it was their usual school class setting, they would not talk about it because those issues are too stigmatizing. You don't stand up in your school class where you are every day and say, okay, we had the 5th potato day at home because we can't afford anything else. So we made sure that we had specific workshops, and over 50 in residential care flats, or we invited, there is a department who is responsible for allowing or disallowing the reduction of the costs for the school meals. So those are households with low household incomes, and we advertised the workshops there to reach out to children experiencing poverty. So through these measures, when all of the kids shared a certain amount of experience, then those issues could be talked about even in the group, which was not possible in the school class setting. And there we learned a lot of additional things that we wouldn't have heard or that wouldn't have been talked about in the classrooms. And this led to a lot of small steps. For example, several of our leisure activities offer food. And usually we wouldn't mention it because, well, it's like an added value. And now we specify and we make sure that those activities where there is food are rather at the end of the month, where it's more difficult to go shopping for families. So that has not changed anything in the budget, that has not changed anything in resourcing with personnel, but it was a direct feedback that they only get pasta and potatoes towards the end of the month and would be happy if they see an apple or a fresh bread. So those were through those specific workshops that were not stigmatizing, issues could be addressed that are usually hard to talk about, and that helped us make our activities or make our programs more accessible.
Thank you, Bettina, and Alessandra as well. Asking you to keep it concise, please.
Vale.
So, talking about innovation, we are working on the federation and entities. So, the federation is working on digitalization of the sector. So we're working to develop a program focused on management and attention to people, so it can allow us to have data to solve the lack of data specifically, to evaluate, to planify, and also point out that this program is developed under attention to people, and it's being developed, and it mainly aims to partly manage the files so that the people can work on that. So kids and teens, basically. So this is one of our subjects, and we're also working on projects as federation so that people can participate directly. So as a first person, for example, organizing hackathons so we can identify challenges so kids and teens can search solutions. Or yesterday we made a mural to work on rights acknowledgement. So entities are working I have ordered them in chapters. So some are related to innovation, to funds, auto-refunding, to elaborate or carry training programs for kids that cannot access school, university, especially immigrants. We're also making research for auto-funding to cover bare necessities such as reinforcement, dentist, ophthalmology, but also as a community, we're working on innovation projects to transform services with a more communitary point of view, to work with families from proximity, from their surroundings. So, for example, at home, and also have a more holistic point of view of people. Before, I think it was Esther pointed out developing Barnacus, so an initiative of Generalitat, but some entities of FEDAI are collaborating on that, and also working with families, everything regarding reinforcing parental competencies, breathing, positive mentality, and all therapeutical issues, to work on relationships. Also accompanying teenagers on their transition to adult life, to their independence. That is really hard for us. So getting a job, training, and also be able to get a house or flat, which is something complicating. So we're exploring new alternatives. And also all the things regarding to projects regarding good treatment and violence prevention.
I apologize for our speakers that our time is curtailed, because I could literally spend the entire afternoon unpacking everything you're sharing, all these great examples, and they are inspirational in their own individually and collectively as well. I hope they are useful for our audience thinking ahead. The final point that we had in our original questions, I will condense it and request you to, when thinking about a key message for EU and national decision makers to improve the rights of children, in 2 lines, can you think of a 2-line summary? What would be your key takeaway to those in the room and to the decision makers we've heard from today? Mattia.
Dos aspectes. Primer, el tercer punt en 2 línies. Lluitar contra la pobresa infantil, recolzar les famílies amb mesures econòmiques, invertir en contra de mesures de violència domèstica, violència en general, coordinació de les polítiques i les accions per influir en els menors migrants no acompanyats, i quart, fer campanyes culturals i polítiques per posar en primer lloc la centralitat de que tots els nens tenen els seus drets. Molt clar, gràcies. Henrik? El missatge hauria de ser que els nens no hagin d'escollir viure
on local and national level to lift them out of poverty.
Tack.
I agree with what has been said about protecting the children and the young people, and also giving them space to breathe, and space where they can just be without doing lots of things we request them to do.
A good reminder, children should be able to be children. Thank you, Bettina.
An oldie but goldie. If you do nothing about them without them, you have a good stepping stone for saving time and money and for having happier and healthier citizens or inhabitants.
Alessandra.
Bé, nosaltres n'havíem apuntat moltes, però això, com que tenim temps...
So we talked about many, but the time is limited. So there's something that has been said already. We always talk about childhood in terms of future. And what we would like to say is that we would like to ask is for people to think that they are citizens of the present. You know, they have full rights now, and they would need to consider as citizens with rights in the present right now, and we would need to increase the investments in childhood.
So we move on to the final element of this work, this round table, which is extremely condensed as well, but just some closing reflections from my side in terms of what we've heard today. Key to what each of the panelists have spoken about is designing work where children, it's important to design interventions where children are at. And that does not necessarily mean in mainstream services. Mainstream services are not necessarily always safe spaces, and we need to be able to engage children where they're at if we want to design with them lasting solutions. Secondly, I think building coalitions of different actors together is clearly key. That's being repeated throughout the session, both earlier this morning and also now. And also, I think importantly, with this session, we learned about how child-led and youth-led networks are also and have been created in other contexts as well, in Italy, in Vienna too. And finally, I think Henrik's quote captured it very well. Children do not choose to live in poverty. We need to start with that as a first and foremost in our work. Some other reflections that were shared during the earlier part of the session I've been asked to share as well is around the right of housing. Regarding the European Commission's intervention earlier, it was argued among the audience that there are more political and policy emphasis needs to be placed on housing, which is also an important point of the child guarantee, and especially evictions as a direct violation of children's rights or a form of violence. So housing alternatives should be put in place and better policy needs to be developed as well. With regards to migration, what mechanisms can be put in place to support children born in countries outside of the EU to address specific needs through mentoring, school systems and family services as well. And then thirdly, strengthening social protection systems. What legal policy measures could we put in place to improve the conditions of social organizations and those people who are working directly with children and in children's rights issues and their fulfillment? These are some reflections from the room, so thank you for sharing them. Before we close, I would like to give an opportunity for anyone in the room who has a question or two questions to address to our speakers as well. If you have any, please perhaps raise your hand. If you don't, this is also fine, but you are very welcome. And I'll have my Catalan interpretation ready to go. Yes?
Hola, buena tarde a tothom. Moltes gràcies per...
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for the presentation. In the case of Catalonia, is there legislation? But we thought that we think that the participation of boys and girls is very important for this to move on, right? Legally, and to access information. But as far as Catalonia, there's limitations, legal limitations, like the transparency law makes it difficult for children to access the law, right? They need to be at least 16 years old. And there are many towns where children can participate only after they turn 16. So these are limitations that go against these rights, against the rights that you mentioned. And to be able to exercise the right of a healthy environment and other rights. And I would like to ask, in the case of Catalonia and other countries of the European Union, what's being done in this situation, in this institutional and legal context? Maybe this is something that Esther could answer better than myself, but you are right. Intervening so fast, sometimes you just forget some things. I had a lot of information to share, but it is true that one of the things that we ask is how we accompany the development of laws and rules in changing these guidelines. And you are right, because you are talking about them being able to access the law starting at 16 in certain matters, certain ways, but we would need to see how all these two things coordinate. But as from our side, this is one of the things that maybe we could claim for, no, as a federation.
Of at national level, child participation being brought into law or into practices?
Well, the Convention on the Rights of the Child is at constitutional level in Austria, and one of the key pillars of the convention is that children should be heard in all matters that concern them. And it's really difficult to argue that something doesn't concern a child, but B, not everyone feels equally responsible to do that. I mean, traffic and mobility department doesn't feel as responsible as the school board, of course. So, but I don't understand how the transparency legislation is preventing any under 16-year-olds to contribute. But I don't know the Catalan legislation enough. I mean, in Austria anyway, voting rights is at 16, which of course helps to take even younger youngsters already serious, because they are part of the very formal, very traditional decision making.
Yeah, it's indeed quite a specific intersection of law and children's rights in this question. Yes, Alessandra, do you have a response to that?
Vale, només també una qüestió, perquè ara la companya apuntava de poder participar en aquelles qüestions que els hi compet.
I wanted to add something about the questions that are competing to them that are important, and as citizens, all the policies and everything we talk about is of competence to them, because they are citizens as well. And this is one of the questions that we outline. We not only think that they need to participate in what is important for them as children, but also in designing all the transversal policies in our society.
Thank you. There is one more question I see as well, if you can keep it very succinct.
Gracias.
Thank you. A topic that worries me a lot is the access to the rights of migrant people who are just born or just got here. Do you think it would be feasible nationally or international that all the people who are scholarized here, who go to school here, have a representative, a figure, a person of that helps rooting this, so that these children can grow roots here, so that we don't have to modify the whole law in Spain through this representative or this agent?
Perhaps best answered by Alessandra, given it's quite Catalan directed, if I understood right. The interpretation is not so clear, so...
Sí, no?
Sí?
Me la feies a mi, no? Bueno.
This was for me, right? The question, I suppose. This is a question that that's my opinion. I cannot modify the framework, the legal framework, but we try to affect, and my opinion is mine. It's not the Federation's opinion, but I would like to. So we are talking about dreams. Jose Antonio started the morning talking about dreams. I would like to And I think that any person born in any place in the world should have the guarantee of having human rights. And I think it's just by chance that we are born in one place or the other. So Catalonia or Morocco, for example. So if we have migration flows that are go over the actual people, no, that we need to. These rights are respected, if not only in the origin of these people, but everywhere they go. And this is my opinion. It's not the Federation opinion, though.
And but Austria doesn't have a good record on keeping human rights of people who search refuge or asylum.
Mm-hmm.
And it starts with detaining even minors. Even more so, Vienna tries to make up for the shortcomings of the national government, but we don't have the legislative powers, so we won't change the citizen laws or similar things, but we try to make sure that everyone feels welcome and engaged and finds their community, even if it's on the neighborhood level. And maybe that's, from a community perspective, even more important that you have connections in your neighborhood. I mean, Henrik has talked about this as well. So I think that's how we're trying to compensate shortcomings of the national government on a very small scale, but which is emotionally at least important for not only children and young people, but for everyone coming new to a country.
Yeah, I see Margaret would also like to join in. I think this question is particularly, and this response in terms of how we as communities, as civil society, can try to address the shortcomings of national legislative contexts. This is one that we all have our points on, I think. Margaret, please.
In Malta, there is a good practice when it comes to migration, especially with children. So in every government school, there is a classroom specifically for children who just arrived to the country. So they would have 1 year learning the language and getting to know the culture of Malta before they go to the mainstream class, before they go to the other one. In that time, we can talk to the families more. We can see the financial situation. We can offer even free school lunches, for example, to the children, so that as much as possible they feel part of the community. There will still be instances where they like to keep to themselves and to their own like friends coming from the same country. It will happen. However, we're trying to, as much as possible, facilitate the integration process.
Great, thank you. Henrik, Mattia, anything you'd like to add?
Mattia, vols afegir res?
The role that as I told before, in Italy, every migrant minor, but also every minor that isn't living in his family, has the right to have a so-called voluntary legal guardian. Is a person, a citizen, trained to be the legal representative and a figure, important figure that help the minors to have a relation with the institutions that represent in every important place, together with the facility structures. But it's an important now in this moment. Italy is promoting these roles with a national training campaigns, specifically with the unaccompanied minors, but also is an historical role in Italy for minors out of family.
Great. We need to close. So we will have to stop taking questions for the moment. However, we are here for the rest of the day and then beyond. If you have any more questions or comments, or you'd like to discuss more with the speakers, because having just listened to them condense all of their amazing work into such a short period, there is so much more to scratch and find out. So I do encourage you to do so during our network lunch. If you need help with interpretation when speaking with us, don't hesitate to go to the organizers and they will help support that too. I would like to thank you all for your time. I would like to thank you for going through your content faster than planned. And I would like to thank you all for listening. And I'm happy to pass the floor to the next phase, which I think is to close the conference, which is Mika.
Thank you, Kieran, and thank you for the amazing panel that we have just been listening to. I think it has been truly inspiring to listen to you, and I think it has been truly inspiring to listen to this whole morning, or actually going into the afternoon, to everything that has been discussed and brought up. So I have the pleasure to close this conference with some closing remarks, and also with some suggestions to look forward. I think it has been really important that we've been able to come together today to connect the local and the regional Spanish and European civil society organizations with EU and Catalan decision makers in defense of children's rights. It's important to take the key learnings and messages to the decision makers and politicians here in Catalonia, in Spain and the European Union, because when implementing children's rights, we, for example, have to make sure that the European Child Guarantee, but also the EU strategy on the rights of the child are implemented, and that we use them to advance and defend children's rights. And we have these strategies at the European level, but I also heard today that it's important to bring these to the local, regional and national level. So we should also have children's rights strategies at city level. I think we heard that they have them in Vienna, but also here in Catalonia, it would be really good to have such a strategy. We also heard today a lot of discussions about one of the key challenges for children's rights in Europe today, which is the number of children at risk of poverty, which as many of you, or several of you mentioned, it's almost 25%, which means 20 million children in Europe in 2022 only. But also in Catalonia and Spain, the numbers are really high, and the European Child Guarantee and also the EU strategy on the children's rights are really important tools that can be used to tackle child poverty and social exclusion. And as we also heard, the member states have to develop their national action plans to implement the European Child Guarantee, and many of them have done so. But they also have to be implemented. We heard already that there are quite a lot of good examples. The European Commission official mentioned it today, but a lot more needs to be done. That's also what we heard today from civil society organizations. So I'm actually pleased that we were able to join the Valencia meeting that took place 2 weeks ago, where European Child Guarantee coordinators and civil society were meeting together. Ricardo also mentioned it today. And they discussed the implementation of the Child Guarantee and the need for more cooperation between decision makers and civil society. And at this meeting in Valencia, they also wanted to adopt a declaration to fight child poverty and leaving no child behind. Unfortunately, it was only signed so far by 23 member states. But we have good hopes that by the end of the Spanish presidency, by the end of the year, that all member states will have signed this declaration. And this declaration is actually calling on all of the EU to reduce child poverty by at minimum of 5 million by 2030. And And we believe as civil society organizations that this really should be the minimum because it's not enough. Child poverty rates have gone up through the crisis and the energy crisis and the war in Ukraine. So basically reducing it by 5 million is bringing us back to the figure that we had before the crisis. At the Valencia meeting and also today, there is a lot of importance given to the fact that children have to participate in decisions that are affecting them. Many of you refer to this. Also, Jose Antonio said that he had a dream about child participation, but also Ricardo referred to it, Esther Cabanes, Bettina. I think there is a alignment here that it is important to involve children in decisions that affect them. And I'm therefore happy to share with you that we actually carried out consultations with children on child poverty in four countries, in Malta, Bulgaria, Croatia and Estonia. And children were giving their views on the impact of poverty on other children, but we also asked about how it affects children at school, at their homes, within their communities, and they also talked about how poverty can lead to children being bullied. And then they came up with recommendations on what they think should be done to address child poverty, what decision makers can do to make a change. And that the recommendations range from minimum wages, affordable housing schemes, campaigns for provisions of free school meals, but also to end the stigma surrounding child poverty. And the title of the report is Poverty Takes Away the Right to Childhood. And as you also said, children should not be poor. I think it was one of the speakers in the last panel. We have some copies of the report with us, so feel free to come to us during the lunch break if you would like a copy. At Eurochild, we've also been working with grassroots organizations to ensure inclusive participation of children in public decision making. And one of the projects that we worked with organization we worked with was here in Barcelona. They're actually here in the room. See, they're in the middle, sitting there from Pere, and they worked with children around, particularly with very vulnerable children, including Roma children, children from migrant backgrounds, around the topics of the child guarantee. And they then decided that they wanted to work with a group of children aged 3 to 12 years old, who are facing severe socioeconomic problems, to develop a child-friendly version of the child guarantee. And they also developed a child guarantee game. This game is a set of cards that can be used by children to enable them to discuss the themes of the child guarantee, so discuss issues around healthcare, around access to education, to housing, nutrition and well-being. And they can use that when they want to discuss this with peers in their communities. So I'm happy to have Pere here, and I think they might have some copies with them. So what can we do to stand up for children's rights? So I'm actually happy to announce that next Monday, when it's the International Day of Children's Rights, when we celebrate children's rights and the Convention on Children's Rights, that Eurochild will publish a report which will provide a country-by-country analysis of children's needs and concrete measures that we can use to address governments. Because what we've done is in 26 countries with 38 children's organizations, we collected evidence. How is the situation on children's rights in your country? How is the situation with the implementation of the child guarantee? And what are the key issues that need to be addressed? And in this report, we have 8 key recommendations that I briefly would like to share with you, because I think these are the recommendations that we need to take forward in our work, also here in Catalonia and here in Barcelona and in Spain. Spain is also one of the countries in the report. So the first recommendation is put children's rights at the heart of the political agenda. There's a clear need for a central body at national level, but also here at regional level, to coordinate the child rights agenda that works across sectors. I think that's also what I heard today. There's too much fragmentation. You need to work together also within your governments and also within the Catalonian regional government. The second recommendation is invest in efficient data collection. We also heard that today, that there's not sufficient data, in particular not for children who are growing up in severely marginalized circumstances. The third one is protect and support vulnerable children. Again, make sure that you have a cross-sectoral approach across schools and communities. The fourth one is to invest in prevention. All interventions must prioritize keeping families together by targeted social benefits and subsidies. These are better than putting children in alternative care. It's better to keep them in their families. The fifth recommendation is around children's well-being online and offline, because we see that children are increasingly at risk being online, and we have to hold online service providers accountable to keep children safe on these platforms. And also we need to make sure that we have the right comprehensive legislation there. We are actually at the moment campaigning very hard with the European Union to get a law there to protect children from online sexual abuse, and it's very hard to get that law through. So if you have any chance to support our advocacy on that, please do so. We also need to implement the child guarantee at national level. It's one of the recommendations, and we need to put children's rights at the core of the European semester cycle. And we are calling on member states to really show political will to exceed the target of reducing child poverty by 5 million. And the last one, recognize children as agents of change in their own right, because it's crucial to enable children, but also the civil societies representing their rights to bring this perspective to the decision makers. So that's the report we will publish on Monday. Also on Monday, there's going to be in the European Parliament a resolution voted on children's rights. It's a resolution tabled by Dragos Pislaro. He's a MEP from Romania. And he also wants to reinforce the importance to address child poverty and to have increased investments in childhood care and education. He also wants to set up a European Children's Authority. And this should have a mandate to establish a permanent mechanism to monitor, support and cooperation between the European Commission, the member states and all the different stakeholders, including civil society organizations. We hope the resolution will be voted and adopted by the Parliament on Monday. Last but not least, I would like to recall, which was also mentioned by several speakers today, the European Parliament elections that we have next year in June, and also the appointment of a new European Commission by the end of the year. So we as civil society organizations at Eurochild, we cooperate with many other organizations, including UNICEF, Save the Children, well, I would say name them. And we are developing a children's rights manifesto because we want to ask candidates for the European Parliament elections to sign up to this manifesto. So once they are elected, that they are going to be a child rights champion. And to do that, we also have a survey, developed a survey together with children, which is now online, and children can respond in their own language to the questions that they think that the new European Parliament and the new European Commission should address. So feel free to share. It's also available in Spanish. Not sure if it's in Catalan yet, but we can maybe try to also get that translation. So I'd like to close by stressing the importance of the third sector and civil society organizations to meet today and to cooperate, to contribute to the promotion, the protection and the fulfillment of children's rights. Let's work together to fulfill the dream of ensuring children's rights here in Barcelona, here in Catalonia, in Spain and in Europe. And I would like to thank you for your attention. So now I give the final words to Jesus Delgado, who is Vice President of the Third Sector Platform of the Catalonia.
Can you hear well? Yes? Okay.
Thank you for your interesting contributions to the global vision of that your board suggests now. It's always a pleasure to hear Eurochild's expertise, really, really. Moltes gràcies a tota la...
Thank you very much to all the people who are here and all the participants from different tables. In the name of the president of the table, Ms. Francina Alsina, who couldn't come today. She had to excuse herself because she had another commitment. we would like to thank especially DIPLOCAT because they are continuing to give space to these sessions, and also thank the colleagues of Eurochild and the faculty of social work of the Foundation Pere Tarrés from Ramon Llull University. And also let me share with you from my deepest of my heart and our personal satisfaction for being able to welcome to let us be here in this space regarding the children. And as we usually do, the entities of the table in PINCat, we have all gathered today to share observations, challenges, and results and learnings from our actions and projects, and build among us together in projects that make us improve. We need to take into account the different actors and this dialogue that has been very enriching, successful. It has been very positive regarding European and international policies, and what are the challenges that we have to face in order to fight for children's rights, especially the ones that are in a vulnerable situation, especially for the Children's Rights Day, which is November 20th, next Monday. We need to continue to repeat what is really important. Europe is not something that is far away. It's our home, and we will go back to that again later. We had a lot of notes, information, but I will be very, very concise because we don't have a lot of time. But I want to say three specific things. First, it is very clear that we need to keep prioritizing the children's rights. We need to make them be the center of our ideas, not only politically, but taking into account that the word childhood does not appear enough in all the legal systems, and also we heard different realities from Italy, Denmark, from the PINCat report, and other realities from Eurochild, UNICEF, and we have seen that the children are particularly vulnerable because of the poverty and other things like the digital gap or the climate change even. So, and secondly, I would like to highlight that we get better, we improve if we coordinate our efforts. This multicultural alliance that we have seen with different perspectives is very enriching, and the historical commitments that have been brought up, we need to be able to translate them, working together, working here and there in different countries. And we want to highlight also our commitment as a sector and to lead process that can improve the children's rights, not only locally, but globally as well, like we did today. And thirdly and lastly, also remind that the European Commission and all the member states that we need to continue to get deeper into the administrations, the governments, the policies at a local, national, and international level. We think that it is very important that the third sector organizations are, and they already are, but they need to keep being a successful strategy to find answers to our questions. So we are key entities so that no boys and girls are left behind. And now to conclude, in the platforms, Eurochild, platforms for childhood, all the platforms that you work with, thank you. Thank you for your excellent task that you are doing from Madrid, Brussels, or any corner in Europe, advocating for these rights. so that they are listened. And in order to finish, I would like to end with two things, two pieces of information. Europe is our house. We are entities that are profoundly committed with human rights, people's rights, and we need to pay attention to the next year's elections, parliamentary elections, because there's a lot of at stake, and we need to play an important role, and we need to mobilize the European society, and we need to make the social rights are a pillar and base of the project, and we need to make that this elections that in May 2024 are at the center of these rights. And I invite you all to stop these hate speeches and to build this a Europe that we all want and that we all want to work with, and so that this is even more evident and more coherent. Let me finish reminding everybody about the concerns of the table regarding all the violence in Gaza and violating rights, like very important rights, like the right of living, and knowing that many kids in Europe are suffering from these conflicts, and we all have family links, and we need to fight for the fact that the children should not grow up being exposed to such levels of violence. And as far as advocating for human rights, children's rights, here and in the world in general, we need to keep working on our answers collectively and also abroad. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much.